Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Men of Bronze podcast. I am the host of the Men of Bronze podcast and the founder of the Men of Bronze movement, Stephen Lopes. Sitting down with me today is Johnny King. Johnny King is a transformational men's coach who helps men achieve their highest potential and unlock the secrets of their masculinity and what they can achieve in this world. We talk about some awesome topics tonight, guys. We talk about the 6 human needs. We talk about keeping healthy relationships with our spouse and with our friends, coworkers, and our bosses. We talk about unlocking our masculinity, how we can make the most of it, and how we can achieve happiness and satisfaction in our lives. We also talk about building each other up as men, how we can be the greatest men we can be, and really achieve what we want in this world and unlock true success. Johnny King is an awesome guy, extremely inspirational, and I know you guys are going to love this one, so make sure you reach out to him on social media and follow him on Instagram, where that's kind of like his home base. All the links for Johnny's website and his social media will be in the links in the description box below, guys. Whether you're on YouTube or your podcast app, most podcast app you just kind of swipe left or right and you can find the description in there. You can find some links for Johnny King in there, guys. Before we hop into the conversation, I want to ask you guys to subscribe to the podcast. If this is your first time joining us, thank you for joining us for an episode, and I really hope you get some real good value here that you can implement in your daily life, guys, and become better men. And if you're a return listener, I want to thank you. Double down, guys. Thank you for supporting the show and coming back for more. It shows me that you guys are connected, that you're dedicated to becoming the best men possible. Guys, I want you to subscribe to the podcast, whether you're on your podcast app or you're on YouTube. Comment, hit the thumbs up button if you're on YouTube, whatever you can to support the show, guys. And especially, guys, share this with some men in your life. There's a lot of men that have no idea that there's podcasts made for them. So share it with your dad, your brother, your coworkers, whatever, guys. There's lots of guys in this world that don't know there's podcasts out there. So share it with the men in your life, guys. But without further ado, I've got a great conversation lined up for you here with Johnny King, guys. So I want you to enjoy it. So let's dive right in. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show today. I know you're a busy dude. You're cramming me in between coaching sessions, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to. This is what I live for. It's great.
Good.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, there's a lot. I know we're limited to an hour, which is totally fine. So there's I know you've got a lot to offer. So hopefully we can get some good stuff in here in our limited time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So a lot of what you do is men's coaching. On top of that, you've got your, I don't want to get the title wrong, your men's group that you hold.
Meeting of men. Yes.
Your meeting of men. Yeah. Which is, I love that. I love the title. It's simple. It's sweet. It's powerful.
Thanks.
I love it.
Thanks.
How often do you hold those?
Once a month. And then we do a lot of other stuff. It's always like once a month to kind of help level each other up and maybe have some difficult conversations, and then other type of social events and adventures, so.
Is it the same core of guys all the time?
No. I'm constantly running Facebook ads, so I'm driving new guys to that all the time. So
cool.
Yeah, it started off last year with maybe 15 to 20 guys, first couple meetings, and then by I think December we had a group of nearly 90 guys actually. So
wow.
Yeah, it just keeps growing, which is cool because I didn't know if any guys were going to respond. If this is what they wanted, and they keep showing up. So the guys keep coming back, and then new guys show up. So it's pretty cool.
It's really taken off.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun.
Well, that might be, I mean, if you're remotely willing, that might be something that I'll pick your brain over in the future.
Absolutely. Gosh.
Because it's certainly something that I'm interested in with Men of Bronze, with kind of growing the movement. And totally. I think there's a lot of kind of that kind of thing that's lacking, especially in our area. So
yeah. I coach other coaches or other guys that are all across the world, for that matter, looking to see how did I grow the group and that sort of thing. And there's a method to my madness. So absolutely, always happy to be an open book.
Cool. We can chat about that a little bit later.
Yeah, totally.
So there's a few things I want to ask you. I mean, like in these men's groups, and you also do one-on-one training.
Yep.
What's a common thing that you see that a lot of men either struggle with, or a lot of men come to you with looking for some coaching for?
Sure. I think a lot of them don't know. What they do know is what they're doing isn't working.
Right.
What they do know is that they don't feel a whole lot of like that they should be happier than they
Mm,
actually are, right? It's where I found myself 10 years ago as well. Like on paper, everything looked great,
sure.
and yet Sunday nights, I hated my life. Knowing I had another week ahead of me of a job that I was passionless for, um, and yeah, it was just kind of like, is this really why I'm here on this planet? Is this really
Mm,
my purpose? Like literally just to trade hours for dollars. And so I had no real passion in my heart for, gosh, for anything. So that's what I found is like, okay, this is the experience that I went through going from not even knowing what I was supposed to be doing in life to now living my purpose. How do you even figure that out? And then helping other men kind of through that process. So a lot of them just over the last year and a half of working with men, because I worked with women primarily for 8 years prior to that.
oh,
So I
interesting.
completely rebranded my whole business and went all in on men at the very beginning of 2019. And probably in that time, I've gone to gone on probably over 100 bro dates for coffee, you know, and
Yeah.
just shooting the shit and being like, okay, what do you got going on? What's the issue? And uniformly, I think a lot of guys are like, yeah, like my relationship is great, or I've got my health, but it's like there's always some big area of their life that's lacking, and a lot of
Mm,
times it's like that greater sense of purpose and direction
yep.
that really is lacking, and even deeper than that is probably a greater masculinity that they're searching for.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I think that's tough in our society right now too. Is a lot of men are being bombarded against our masculinity, being told this negative thing, and that we need to put a leash on our brothers, and we need to tone it down, and be careful what you teach your children when it comes to masculinity. And we've all heard toxic masculinity, that big farce of a thing.
Yep.
So there's a whole scenario, there's a whole group of society that are against us, and it can be a bit of a tough go for a lot of guys, especially if you're battling those inner demons of not being satisfied with your current lifestyle. You can really get yourself into a downward spiral.
Right.
And I know for myself, for sure, I want to do something greater than what I'm doing right now, which is why I've started Men of Bronze.
So cool.
So hopefully that goes in the right direction.
Totally.
And I know a lot of the guys that I talk to, a lot of my buddies who are, in their early 30s or late 20s, already feel that.
Yep.
So wait till they're 40 and, they're in that job where, they make the 70, 75K. So you're comfortable.
Yep.
You're not wealthy, which, we don't need to be wealthy for sure.
Right.
But, you're kind of in that bracket of comfortable income, but
Totally.
you've got that job that you don't love, but you can't leave it because if you leave, you won't make as much money.
Damn
And
right.
and you come dependent on that. You buy your truck and you buy your wife a car and you buy that house in the suburb, and now you're strapped for cash and you're stuck in this loop for till retirement.
Right.
Do you
And you're
find that a lot?
yeah, you're talking exactly kind of my experience, because I got married when I was 27, um, divorced at 30, and as I told her when she was heading out, like, hey, I wouldn't have wanted to be married to that guy either. And just to let you
Mm,
know, like that guy's dead. Like I hate that guy as much as you do, if not more. And
yeah.
so this is my new trajectory. But it was exactly that. And I think I was so frustrated because on paper, I felt like I had checked all the boxes of what I thought would equal a happy life. Like I just followed what my parents taught me and what
Yeah.
school taught me and church taught me: get a good job, do well, you know, all that good stuff, a good education, meet someone, start a family. And so I had kind of, again, felt like I was succeeding in that science of achievement,
Mm,
which again is kind of very masculine focused in terms of like, I just decided I was going to do this and I was going to make money. But it was all very much certainty based. I needed to have that security, and I was deeply insecure. So I was looking for like money, promotions, accolades to make myself feel significant,
yeah.
when the whole other flip side of the coin, which is that art of fulfillment, the questions of like, what do you really want? Like, what if you could design your life any way that you want it, what would it look like? Because when the ex-wife decided to move on to greener pastures, I kind of looked back and be like, again, I didn't want to be that guy, nor did I really even, what was I fighting for?
Mm.
You know? And like all the little things that I would nitpick on, you know, when someone kind of throws a major like scratch in your record, you know, and you're like, none of that stuff actually matters,
Yeah.
right? And whether it be like coronavirus or all the things that are going on in the world right now with the protests, it's like it actually has a good way of allowing us to recalibrate what truly is important in life, you know?
Oh man. I,
So
I completely agree. It's been
yeah,
I was off work for a month, and what a transition period. Luckily we were financially stable, so that wasn't a big deal.
yeah,
But that time alone with my family has really solidified my opinion on wanting to do something else.
yes, yeah,
My job is good. I have a good job that I enjoy, and my company's great, all that kind of stuff. The people I work with are fantastic. And that's not the issue. The issue is not who I work with or how the company treats me, because that's all positive.
yeah,
But I think you know what I mean. I think most men listening will understand this, or be able to relate to this, where there's just something else missing, where it's not your thing. It's
yeah,
You're not the one who's in charge of your schedule and all that kind of stuff, and
yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a lack there. And the last thing I want to do is do 25 years of work and look back and say, I wish I did this, or I wish I did that. And I think it's
I
pretty
think,
common.
yeah. And I think we can look at a lot of times our parents' generations, you know, or our grandparents' generations of like, they got into a job and they worked it for 30 years or 40
Hmm.
years. But then their marriages weren't all that happy.
No.
You know, they stayed together for the kids or whatever, and we're kind of looking at it now as this generation being like, man, we have everything at our fingertips, right?
Yep.
The fact that we have this, you know, literally at our fingertips is like, you know, it's more amazing probably than anything else that's come along
Yeah.
ever, right? And yet we take it for granted, and we know that that's actually not happiness either. And so I think the bigger conversation to be had for me is just like, man, I grew up just loving superhero movies, loving Braveheart, Gladiator, 300, Matrix. Like, why was it like that inner warrior in me? Like, whenever I come out of those
Mm.
movies, it's like, fuck yes, let's do this. And then I get
Yeah.
back into life and be like, I'm literally sitting here putting out fires all day at my corporate job. You know, I was like, where is my war to fight, my battle to dive into? Like, who, like that was what I was yearning for. And I think that was having been raised by all women, which they did a great job, but masculinity can't be taught from the feminine, right?
I
It's like
agree. Yep.
me attempting to raise a daughter and really teach her how to be a woman. Like I could never do that. It could
Hmm.
only come from another woman.
Yes.
Since I didn't have that, I looked to those superheroes or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. Like I just,
Brad
you know,
Pitt.
like, yeah, Brad Pitt, that came my way of, yeah. So I was like Troy and William Wallace and like all these different characters from different movies, and that's what I aspired. But that's the thing, is like that still is based off of such a fake facade. There's
Mm.
no wonder that when we get to be adults, we kind of feel like we're living this imposter syndrome, and then we're getting all the shit from, you know, society, women, other men, and we're like, we are completely failing. And that's why I'm saying, like, so many guys that I talk to, like, I know I'm failing, just like I knew I
Mm.
was failing in my life, in my marriage. I didn't know what to do though. I didn't even know where to turn. I just knew it wasn't working, and
Yeah,
something
for
had to
sure.
change, right? So that's kind of where a lot of my work has kind of bred itself out of, which is kind of like you're feeling too. I think so many men that are listening to this are probably like, that's that inner fire that's being
Hmm.
rekindled or being sparked to me. Like, yeah, like this is, if I do the rocking chair test and I look back at my life from 105 years old, will I have anything to regret if I stay comfortable with where I'm at, or will I be grateful for risking it all and at least be able to potentially stand atop that mountain and be like, I'm a king of my kingdom. I effing won, you know? So
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
that's what it's about for me.
So you grew up fatherless? That's what I'm picking up.
Yeah. I mean, my father was a workaholic. He was
Okay.
there. My mom passed away. I guess they were together for 36, 37 years. My mom passed away in 2006 from cancer. And just 2 years after that, he came out that he was gay. And she knew about it in their marriage. None of us knew it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he was running from his own demons. I was so angry at my dad until he came out, and when he came out, because I'd started getting into personal development, all of a sudden, like, all these floating puzzle pieces in my head started, like, coming together, and I was
You
like,
were like,
oh
oh,
my
it
god,
makes
like,
sense.
yeah, you were seeking to become, successful and wealthy so that people would love you, but it was all a facade, you know.
Oh man, it's brutal life.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, my heart just grew with so much empathy to be like, I cannot even imagine. Like, I have my own struggles. We all do as men.
Sure.
But then to kind of question whether or not you should stay behind this fake facade of I'm heterosexual when I actually am not, and I'm failing my wife. I certainly can can resonate with that. And I have to provide for 5 children. Like, talk about being stuck in the rat race. That's like prison. That's hell right there.
Yeah,
So
your father lived through hell for a long time.
totally. And so that's why I have such an amazing relationship with him now, 10 years, 12 years later. I had to totally heal that relationship over time. But why I had that moment of, like, total empathy, because I was like, okay, it wasn't about me. I made it all about me, that you didn't love me, that you
Yeah.
pursued, business or wealth, all this stuff all over your children. And why couldn't you be the father that I wanted you to be? But now I'm blaming him for being the man that I am, because I wouldn't be who I am, nor would I be seeking the message that was amidst my mess,
Mhm.
of life, without him playing the role that he played.
Yeah, I've reflected on that kind of thing before too. We've all got our demons in our past, and if
Yeah.
anyone's come from any kind of rough past, and they're happy where they are now, it's so weird thinking like you're like, oh, I wish I didn't, do this for X amount of years because I'd be so much better at what I'm doing right now. I would have been so much more ahead. I would be more intelligent. I would have read, twice as many books, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you would think like, but I wouldn't be where I am right now, which is weird. So like, where would I be? I might be in a better place.
Yeah.
I might have been in a better place, but I wouldn't be where I am now, and I'm happy where I am now.
Yeah.
So you almost have to be thankful for those transgressions or those bad decisions or whatever it was that you did, because you wouldn't be where you are now. So you can't focus too much on, everyone always says don't dwell on the past. Well, it's really true. Don't dwell. Take the past and learn from it.
Yeah.
Don't dwell on it and beat yourself up, because you wouldn't be where you are now without it.
Yeah. Amen. I'm was raised a Christian, and kind of spent some time just kind of losing my way in that sense too over the last 10 years, and kind of coming back into, not to make this a religious conversation at all, but just like a spiritual conversation of, like, to believe that way of, like, oh, what could have been had I, man, like, and to beat yourself up for, oh, if I had maybe 10 more years, is to kind of, spit in the face of your creator, who
Mm,
I believe literally kind of, like, didn't give you what you really wanted, but gave you what you truly needed, right?
mm.
And I think that's the journey of life, to where, like, now it's like watching, God, why am I totally blanking? The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. Like, the dude just thrived on, um, not so much conflict, but just competition
Yeah.
and people hating him. And he would make up stuff about, like, not necessarily saying that that's healthy in some respects, but, like, he just never backed down, right? And he welcomed the adversity. And it's gotten to the point, I've kind of always done that, because even when I was having, arguments in relationships, I was kind of always like, this is good. Like, this is, we're lifting in the gym here, but for our
Yeah.
relationship, this is
Oh yeah.
emotional fitness going on. But I still kind of welcome that, even though that's hard to do in life when you're at the end of your rope and you're stressed out and you feel like you got nowhere else to turn.
For sure.
So,
Yeah. I've told my wife that before too, and that's one thing. I'm not sure if you listen to or if you follow Jordan Peterson at all. That's
yeah,
his book right there.
yeah,
Shoot.
yeah,
That's one thing he says in one of his lectures is like, you want someone as a spouse who challenges you,
yeah.
because if they don't challenge you, you're not going to grow. And within reason, you want to have arguments sometimes,
Mhm.
because that's how you grow. That's how you air things out. That's how you challenge each other. That's how you kind of, you peel the skin off the banana to get to the fruit there. You gotta
Yeah,
you gotta make a mess sometimes
yeah,
to grow and heal and to be better. And
right.
one thing my wife and I always try to do is, again, slightly biblical is, we always try and settle our arguments before bedtime, before the
Yeah.
sun goes down.
Right.
And we found that's incredible. It
Absolutely.
really does work. Sweeping things under the carpet, bad idea. It doesn't work. And if you sleep on it, you're not mad the next day.
Hmm.
So you'll be like, you know what? I was unreasonable, but maybe they were unreasonable.
Hmm.
And you had to you needed to knead that dough out.
Totally.
And if you don't do that, you're not going to grow. It's going to resurface later and it's going to be nasty.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's one thing that we try and do.
It's setting healthy boundaries,
Yeah.
or healthy expectations of like, hey, if we're in this together, it's like having a workout bar. I mean, I can always relate it to being in the gym
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, hey, if I want to quit, I'm not going to let you because I'm your workout buddy,
Yeah.
and I'll spot you even if you don't feel like you have the strength.
I'm going to push you.
Together, we're gonna be stronger. Yeah, for sure. And the other thought that I had when you were saying that too is like a lot of people don't realize that like we all have kind of masculine and feminine energies that we express,
Mm-hmm.
but that the masculine often responds really well to challenge, but
Yep.
the feminine responds to praise. So whether you're a man or a woman, a lot of times when we're deeply insecure or we're hurt or we're just feeling like the world is, the weight of the world is on our shoulders, sometimes to be challenged in that moment breaks rapport, and it makes you feel like you don't get me, you're not hearing me,
Mm.
screw you, I'm out.
Yep.
Right now, really the only place where challenge is constantly kind of inflicted upon men in probably a good way is in the military, where it's like, we're going to push you and challenge you all day long, and if you're going to break, good, because if you don't, then it could be the lives of actual men in the
That's right.
future, right? But it's like, we'll challenge you, and if you make it, then we'll praise you. We'll see if you'll actually rise to the occasion with that massive kind of masculine challenge. But in relationships, you kind of have to know, like, if either partner, and we're talking heterosexual, homosexual, doesn't matter, everything in between, like, there's still going to be polarity in relationships if there's going to be chemistry. And if one
Yes.
person is feeling low and their well is empty, like, you'd have to praise, and that's sometimes where you might feel like you're right in a battle, a conversation, an argument with your spouse, but you have to kind of come back into yourself, like, at the end of the day, if this is going to be a win-win and we're into this as a partnership, then I might want to feel like I want to assert my rightness, but you know what? Being loving is more important. So I'm gonna praise you, apologize. Let's get this together. That'll help lift that person up, and then maybe later, the next day or whatever, like, go to bed happy, and then the next day be like, now that we're feeling more full, we can challenge each other again.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. Don't slaughter your opponent before. It's
especially not
just
your
no.
spouse.
There's
Yeah,
just no need. And I
yeah,
mean, what are you really winning when you conquer your spouse, right? And that's one thing that we've kind of struggled with in the past too. Me being a man, obviously. And my wife's a total sweetheart. So in arguments, I come from a fairly aggressive family. So when we get into an argument, I instantly want to win, and I really want to battle this out, and I want to tell her why she's wrong and why I'm right, and that's it.
yeah,
So that's been something that we've worked on over the last 7 years. Is
yeah.
don't be such a dick, and don't try and win this fight just for the sake of winning it.
Right.
Don't treat it like a debate where, like, regardless of who's right, you can win with a certain amount of points.
Yeah.
Let's actually think this through and listen to each other. And it's a challenge still, especially if I'm heated or if I'm upset. It's obviously
Of
a
course.
it's obviously a challenge. You throw emotions in there, it's very difficult, but something to work on. If you're conscious about it, you're making positive moves.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned through a lot of my personal development, work, has been like, whether you're talking in an intimate relationship, a platonic relationship, a business relationship, like you and your kids, it's like, if it's not a win-win, you know, it's not going to ever work. So if
Mm,
I'm winning and they're losing, especially in an intimate relationship with your spouse or your significant other, it may feel like I'm winning and you're losing because I want to assert that I'm right. And I finally,
mm.
at the end of the day, you both lose.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
has to be a win-win where both people are heard and respected. And that just takes man, that takes years and years of like open communication and working on this and commitment. And, but it's so worth it. Otherwise you just get another relationship like what a lot of us have probably experienced with our parents, which is like, they may love each other, but they're not in love with each other. Or
Mm.
I don't even know if they love each other, but they've got a working relationship where they're, just roommates,
They're
right?
just stuck,
Yeah.
and it's just easier at this point. You're 20 years deep. It's easier.
Yeah. Well, that's just the thing, is like everything that's easier is usually not the way,
Yeah, we
So
had this weird thing about not fixing our problems, and you see it in relationships where people will, instead of like facing their spouse and being open and honest, or ending their relationship, whatever it means, like some people will like commit suicide before they do that.
no, absolutely.
Like it's crazy.
Absolutely.
Like not being able to face your spouse, or be honest and open with the person that you've committed to live your life with. you'd you'd rather take your own life than do that, and that's always boggled my mind.
Yeah. And I
It's
think
tough.
that too. Yeah. I think that's really tough, but I feel like that's even more probably a byproduct of someone's upraising,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah, could be.
where they're feeling so much burden and so little self-worth that they'd
Right.
rather end it than to keep battling forward.
Mm.
And that's just my belief. I mean, I've had my failed relationships, and it's easy to think, oh, it's their fault or their fault. Man, at the end of the day, to me, it's a lot clearer having done the work.
Mm.
A lot of times, it's we are triggering our deeper fears that comes from our relationships, or our upbringing or our parents' examples. It's
Yeah,
like it's really has less to do about the individual people in a relationship as it does being triggered by our past pains that we're actually looking to avoid feeling again, which is why we give up on the relationship or we give up on life, right? It's just our avoidance of not wanting to be in that pain anymore and not knowing
exactly.
how to reconcile it. So you think, you know what, I'm out.
Yeah,
If I'm out, then I'm scot free, you know,
wash my hands of this garbage.
until you realize that you take your shit to the next relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I've dealt with friends before who want to, they're like, oh, you know what, I'm packing up and I'm moving across the country and I'm going to set up shop there. I'm like, man, it's not going to be any better over there,
You're taking me with
because
you.
yeah, you're the problem.
Yeah.
It's your girlfriend's not the problem, your job's not the problem, your parents aren't the problem.
Yeah.
You know, every single person that you've burned a bridge with isn't the problem. Your last 4 jobs that didn't work out aren't the problem. You're the problem.
Which is their biggest fear,
Yes, they don't want to face it.
that they're not enough, that they're broken, and
Mm,
then they'll never actually be loved. That's the biggest fear but they just, put it off on other people outside of themselves, keep
right. You
blaming.
project it on other
Yeah.
people,
You're just
and
a victim until you finally say, you know what? It's not that I'm broken, but I just have to take responsibility and I can be the victor of this situation. That takes a lot of humility and a lot of courage. And not a ton of people are willing to do that work.
yeah, I think a lot of men need some kind of support group. And that's why I love this the meeting of men that you're doing. And that's why I've started Men of Bronze as well, is to try and equip men with some tools to some conversations that they can listen to. They can gain some insight, some wisdom, maybe just trigger something for them to reflect on, whatever it is. If they want to reach out to me or any of my guests,
Yeah.
bring those to light. What are some of the things you guys tackle in your meeting of men?
Shit, everything. Everything from obviously the big common staples of all of our lives are relationships, health, business, or finances, right?
Yeah.
So you can talk about your physical health, your emotional health, your financial, your mental, emotional, physical health. You can talk about your spiritual health, your
Mm.
relational health, financial health. So it's basically all those things. But then a lot of it, I think, is the men so appreciate having conversations with other men, strangers, to actually realize, I mean, every single month I get feedback from texts, emails, conversations, and be like, I didn't realize I wasn't alone. And
Oh
that's just the
man.
challenge, is that we don't typically uh, get together and talk about our feelings. That's just not what we were programmed to do, or
Yep.
it's not our strong suit, compared to stereotypical feminine women who love to talk about their feelings. And
Yeah.
you know all that good stuff. For us, it's just not what we do. And so to actually it's what we want, but it's not something we will often go and facilitate on our own. So I do that. I'm happy to do that. And that's where I never really go into these types of meetings where I'm like, okay, let me tell you what I know. If
Yeah.
anything, I'm just bringing in a speaker
Mm-hmm.
who has some area, and I kind of, take a topic that we're all familiar with, but then we interweave all of the emotional fitness side of it, which is like, if you don't have this together, which controls, how you feel and how you act and the results you get, then all of these tools and strategies aren't going to mean jack. Right. So we get into some of it, and some meetings are a little bit more surface layer, maybe just talking about how to make more money, and other ones are more like, let's talk about sexual shame.
Yeah, sure.
So it's I just personally, like I said, 10 years ago, I was like, I want to live an adventure. And yes, some of it is right here in Colorado, up in the mountains, but then there's also that emotional adventure that I want to feel and to grow, and to go on an adventure with my brothers, not only physically, but emotionally, being like, let's figure out where this is going and why you feel that way, and what can we do to help you kind of raise the tide so we can raise all of our boats here. I think is the important conversation to be having.
Hey guys, I want to interrupt this episode just briefly to yet again remind you to subscribe to the podcast, whether you're on your YouTube or your podcast app. Hit the subscribe button. If there's a bell in your app or on YouTube, please click that bell so you get a notification every time we release a new episode, which is usually weekly. Connect with me on social media, guys. I'm on Instagram, Stephen Lopes _MOB. You connect with me directly there. Any questions, any comments, whatever, guys. I love hearing from you guys. So connect with me on Instagram. Check out our website, www.menofbronze.ca. And of course, again, subscribe to the podcast on any platform you can. Guys, I want you to share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend or a man in your life this week. That's your goal for this week, is to share an episode of the Men of Bronze podcast with another man in your life. And connect with me on social media and let me know who you shared it with, guys, because I want to hear about it, all right? So connect with me, guys. Share the episode around. That's how we spread the word, and that's how we get other men growing to be the best they can be, guys. All right, enough time here. Let's get back to the episode. That's awesome. Is there a faith aspect to your meetings, or do you kind of keep that kind of off the table unless it comes up naturally? Or
Yeah. I've had other guys come up and say, "Hey, you mentioned something. Are you,
yeah.
are you a believer? Are you a Christian?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." But again, it's like, I've been in points in my life too where it's like, it's not that I felt like God necessarily gave up on me. I kind of felt like I had given up on God, or that, not even that. I'd just say maybe like I just wasn't able to hear him, her, father, mother speak to me. I didn't feel like the lines of communication were open. But I also know there's a lot of I've talked to a lot of men who feel like they hate God, or that God hates them and is punishing them. So, man, there's a lot of like, the way that I see it and the way that I've lived my life, when I was hurting, man, that pain was just below the surface. And it was either going to come out in tears, which I would be ashamed to show, or anger, which is scary, So I think that's the idea, is to give men a healthy outlet to some of that. Because most men, and I would say I am too, about just certain things, I would say there's always some area of my life, or like my thought, that I can get to that I'm pissed off about. And there's a part of me
for
that,
sure.
that kind of feeds off that anger, It's like Michael Jordan, like all these guys, they find that place to be like, and you can use that being pissed off into a healthy channel. Where it's not healthy, obviously, is kneeling on someone's neck,
for 8.5 minutes.
Right. Or doing something where like, and I still have some empathy for men who, or people, mainly men who do all these atrocious, because that is the toxic masculinity, if you will, where it's the shadow, it's the insecure, it's the unfulfilled, it's the empty man that is just at the end of his rope. And he's just, he's taking the ship down, and he's taking anyone with him as he can go, that you can find. And that's even more cowardly, but it's, it's just a huge, I feel like every form of communication is either an act of love or a cry for help. And so when I see the violence, man, it's just these guys that like, they're, when you snap kind of, you lose any connection to reality. And my heart kind of goes out to them to some extent. It's not like any of the stuff I'm, saying it's okay. Of course, it's, you have to take responsibility for your actions, but it's like, I can see where these men can get to their breaking point, and women get to their breaking point, but men are so much more aggressive and so much more physical. And there's a reason why 6 times more men are killing themselves each day than women.
Yeah.
Because there's something like men thrive on executing. It's part of the masculine. It's like, I want to get that done. And even if it's killing myself, I'm going to follow through with it. Where women probably think about it just as much as men do. They probably just don't think about it. They actually probably start thinking about other people's emotions and how they're going to, and that
it's going to hurt somebody. And
they actually keep that, where men are like, the masculine is all about like putting the blinders on, minimizing things, shutting things out so it can get something done. And the feminine is exactly the opposite. It's about filling up, feeling, overflowing, expressing. So it's no wonder that men in their pain, it turns to violence, because we are just physically more kind of just hardwired that way,
Yeah. And that, that characteristic of men is also our strong point, right? That's also what makes us, these dedicated, these strong warriors, people who can be the best in their craft. Not that women can't be the best in their craft. That's not what I'm saying, but right. The strongest, most powerful of fighters and warriors and, army veterans or CEOs and all that kind of stuff. Cause these men are so focused and they're willing to sacrifice anything and everything to get to that end point.
Yeah.
Where often women just aren't willing to do that. And that's a good thing, because women are compassionate and all that kind of stuff. They have incredible characteristics that we don't share as much of. So we both sexes have our skill sets, which both end up as pros and cons depending on what you want or what you think people want. So there's a lot of different balance in there. So, but go ahead.
I would say too, I mean, you look at it from that standpoint, and you have women that are running for president, women that are running companies, and absolutely, there's nothing wrong with it. It's amazing, right? But when it comes to business, you have to oftentimes channel a lot more of your masculine, right?
Yep. Masculine traits for sure.
Yeah. Masculine traits. Business is like, there's no real place for emotion. Sorry. It's just business. Like, don't take it personal. It's just business. And so there's a payoff and a cost to every single thing that we choose to do. Right. My dad was very much in his probably shadow masculine, as he was a workaholic. He was just focusing on making success, but the cost was leaving 5 children and a wife without, even when he was physically there, he wasn't emotionally there.
Yeah.
Right? So with women too, I work with a lot of, high exec men and women that are really struggling in their relationships, or they're really struggling in their health, their physical health, because they're always so focused on, again, like I said, the masculine is all about turning off all distractions, putting on blinders so that you can figure out how to go from point A to solve the problem so I can get to point B, right? You forget then to eat, so then you end up binge eating, or you end up forgetting to call your spouse, or you forget to do, like, you're in the zone, right? Yep. And there's a double-edged sword to that. It's beautiful, because it allows us, all of us, men and women, to channel that ability to go through anything to get our dreams accomplished. But that's like I said, that's the science of achievement. But if you don't throw in the other side of things of asking, but why are you actually doing it? You can get to the end of your result and then ask yourself, like, is this all there is? And have I burned all the bridges behind me and there's no one to join me because it's awfully lonely at the top? If you've lost your relationship, right? Or you're a billionaire, but you're addicted to meth, or whatever the case might be. So you have to look at both sides of the coin. And there's a lot of women that I feel like who really struggle with this. Like I said, I coached for 8 years, just primarily women who are really stuck because they desire significance of, and they feel like they have a gift to give when it comes to being in their masculine and striving to be a big part of the business they're in or creating a business. But then they're still being held accountable to having children, raising them,
Yeah.
And men aren't picking up any more of the slack that they ever really have. They're still like, go raise the children, I do know, and that's not giving men probably enough. It's starting to shift. I mean, I look at a lot of my buddies who I went to school with.
There's been a big shift in the last, I think,
All of
2
them are
decades.
amazing present fathers, and they're really learning. So I do feel like we're at this shift, not only in the conversation we're having about Black Matter, but just as men in general, right? Kind of creating a new modern man or updating the masculine mystique, however,
Yep.
whatever you want to call it. It's happening. It's slow at times, and
Sure.
we can maybe take 2 steps forward and stumble 1 step back, but we're getting there, such that I feel like 2, 3, 4 generations from now, long after we're all dead and gone,
Mm-hmm.
men will have raised the standard of what it means to be just a congruent, positive man who is worth emulating, because there's not a whole lot of them, if I'm being honest. Like, if anything, there's a lot of men who are at the top who abuse their power massively, and
Yes.
it becomes a Netflix documentary,
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so
even my wife's grandma, because they're from, a previous generation.
Mm.
If Hannah's working on the Saturday, she'll make comments like, "Oh, I guess Steve's babysitting today." Hannah's like, "No, he's just parenting. Kids are just home with dad." Like he
Amazing
also
concept.
he
Yeah.
also parents, it's not
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
But that's their era, right? Is the women take care of the kids and the men work, and that's it.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
not how it is anymore. But
No.
yeah.
No. We're kind of stuck between. We're not stuck, but it's evolving, and we have a lot of examples of old school and new school. So
Yeah.
it's good. It's good to be a part of that, though.
A post that I saw, I want to tackle this before we wrap this up in a little bit. I saw you making posts about the 6 human needs. You've been kind of making, individual posts for each one.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the 6 human needs and how we can apply that as men?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned this initially from Tony Robbins, and then learned that he learned it from someone else. It's kind of referred to human needs psychology. Essentially, we all have 6 human needs that we all fulfill in productive or non-productive or neutral ways.
Okay.
Let's just say constructive or destructive ways. And there's 4 needs kind of that are primal needs that we will all seek to fulfill in any given day.
Okay.
No matter what. Then there's 2 needs of the spirit that a lot of people don't focus on because they're still just looking to survive in those first 4.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So what blew my mind when I first heard this was that he was saying, like, this doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it out to be, men and women, and why we do what we do. This is what he found. And that was like, whether we're talking about people all the way back into the Bible ages, or let's say 2,000 years into the future, all of our 6 human needs will all remain the same.
Right. They won't change.
They'll be the same things that create people falling in love. Will continue to create war. Will continue to create dissension amongst people. And it's literally how we go about fulfilling these 6 human needs. So the very first need is the need for certainty. It's the need for stability and comfort and a sense of knowing, right? The second need is the need, which is a paradox to the first need, is the need for uncertainty.
Okay.
And so you start to wonder if God just had a great sense of humor, or why would we have a need that's in direct contrast to the first need? Certainty and then uncertainty. And that uncertainty shows up as our desire for adventure and excitement and romance, right? The things that we don't like are surprises, they are stresses, right? A coronavirus that comes out of nowhere and leaves 20% of our population unemployed and people passing away, like, that's all uncertainty that we did not want. And it creates a lot of stress, right? Which will have people running from uncertainty just to find certainty, right? And so that thank God I have a job at least, and an income,
right,
and roof over my head. That's like, I feel that sense of security, certainty, right? So certainty, uncertainty. Then the third need is the need for significance. And that's for all of us. We have that desire to feel like, are we special? Are we unique? Are we of worth? Or am I just another cog in the wheel? I'm going to do my time, and then the next generation will come and go,
Yeah, like a lot of men need, affirmation from their wives and stuff. We want to be known as protectors, and we want to know that our wives
Yeah,
appreciate it and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. A
yeah.
big thing for men is affirmation for sure.
Right, right, absolutely. And women too. I mean, I feel like
Yeah, yeah,
women want to be validated and feel like they're, you know, like, did you just choose me or am I just a trophy wife?
yeah.
Like, no, actually, I do love you
Why can't
wholeheartedly.
you be both?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, right? No, but excuse me. It's interesting because then again, the paradox to significance is the need for love and connection,
Hmm.
and so that's where we see a lot of times in our, you know, past generations is where, you know, they had love at the beginning. That's how you
Hmm.
fall in love. But through the stresses of life, again, when the masculine gets stressed, it'll go feminine. And when the feminine gets stressed, it goes masculine. So in all these times of high stress, whether you're talking about, you know, coming over from Europe to Americas, or the Great Depression
Hmm.
or world wars, or, all of these different just epidemics or pandemics or whatever create stress. And a lot of times I've seen a lot of it in relationships where right now, especially, like, the stress will either break a relationship or it makes it stronger.
Right.
you know
Yep.
it's probably a good thing just to be like, all right, well, at least we're not going to waste another 5 or 10 years or a
Yeah.
lifetime
Yeah. For
doing
sure.
this.
Yep.
But as long as you actually continue to level up and you learn and you're better, so that the next relationship is healthier and has greater longevity. But a lot of times what we'll end up doing is we'll lose the love in a relationship, but we'll just then settle for connection. And so,
Hmm.
like my parents, my father was, like I said, chasing his own demons, or chasing or running from whatever, as we all were. And my mom, knowing that she ultimately wasn't going to get the love from her husband that she ultimately wanted, she settled for connection with him by way of traveling and eating. They both love to eat, which had a huge impact on their health. My mom passed away. She was overweight. My
Hmm.
dad was 120 pounds overweight when she passed away. And then as soon as she was gone, he lost 120 pounds, like that, because
Really
that connection that they had was severed. So he couldn't fulfill that
fascinating.
need anymore that way, right? So that's where a lot of husband and wives and relationships in general, like I said, straight or gay, they will lose the passion because life stresses them out, and then they'll just settle for the breadcrumbs of connection, and then they'll fall in love with something else. They'll fall in love with their work. They'll fall in love
Hmm.
with Netflixing. They'll fall in love with drinking, or
Yeah.
potentially. But all of those vices are still ways that we seek to fulfill our needs in like destructive or constructive ways.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So those all right there, the first four. The last two is the need for growth. Because as Tony Robbins told me, that if you're not growing, then you're dying. Right.
Right. Yep.
And I think as human beings, like if you're in a job or a relationship where you feel like it's stagnant, it's boring, there's no challenge, to your point earlier, then you're like, what's the point of this? I'm not going anywhere. Right.
Just a paycheck, a mediocre paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that last one is contribution. We all
Mm.
really do have a desire to contribute to something greater than ourselves, even if it's just our relationship or our kids or humanity. um, and those last two are the needs for the spirit, because if you really seek to be fulfilled, talking about the art of fulfillment, you should have those two, because it's kind of like the 5 love languages. And if you're not familiar with the 5 love languages, check it out online. But it's like, of those 6 human needs, we actually will prioritize 2 of those higher than all the other ones. And if you don't have contribution and growth as your top 2, then ultimately you're probably not going to be as fulfilled as you'd like to be.
Mm.
Tony Robbins will go on to say that 90% of humanity has prioritized certainty and significance above all else, especially in this Facebook, Instagram world that we live in.
Yeah.
Being significant, is more and more challenging, because you're going to get online, and as studies show, the majority of all people are significantly less happy 5 minutes into surfing than they
Yes.
were before they got on, right?
Yep.
Which makes them feel even more insecure and feeling like they have to drive even more to become successful. Like, that's all just the science of achievement. And
Mm.
that's just an empty road, right? So, and then certainty, it's like we all seek that level of like security and comfort, and knowing that we've got, a roof overhead, and bill, dollars to pay the bills, and that we're driving a certain car, that we have a certain purse, right? And at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't really actually amount to much.
Yeah, doesn't matter at all.
No, but it is one of those, it's the very basic primal need of like caveman era, which is like fire, shelter,
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
And it turns now into more like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes.
But you have a lot of people like myself who are in dead end jobs or dead end relationships, because it's better to be comfortable with a companion than to be lonely searching, And so I feel like that's the challenge, is a lot of people lower their standards. And
Right.
that's just not something that I'm willing to. I've lived that life for 30 years of like underperforming, right? And so I think a big part of knowing the 6 human needs is to be looking at how can I raise my standards to fulfill my needs for these 6 on a scale of 1 to 10, like at 8, 9, or 10, because that's how I'm going to live my best life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Otherwise, you're settling for, like I said, things that are ultimately going to bring you a lot of boredom and a feeling, I believe, of regret at the end of your days.
I agree. I think I was waiting to hear what you said with the two spiritual growth aspects, because and you said a lot of people don't get a chance to really focus on that, or just don't focus on it at all. And I was having this conversation with well, I think it was my wife the other night, and we were just kind of saying, like, there's so many people that they're not even aware that they should be trying to better themselves, and they're happy. Ah, they're not happy. They're not happy at all. They think they're happy, or they're comfortable in this weird life of
Yeah.
working their construction job and then going home to 4 to 6 pints a night, or their bong at home or whatever. And they've got a mediocre relationship with their kids where it's minimal interactions. And as soon as the kids are old enough to go outside until it's bedtime, they're gonna do the minimal they can, and as soon as they can do that, they'll ship them outside to go to a neighbor's house, and they'll get their life back again, because kids have taken so much away from them, and what are they going to do with that time? Smoke more weed or drink more beer? And it's just, what a shame. What a shame. And I can see that, because that's I was on that path in my mid to late teens, and looking back, it's like, what a waste. It's like there's nothing worse than having your life focused around, a drug or something that you consume. And it's just such a shame. And there's so much more out there. There's a way better life waiting for you if you can cut those vices out and try new things. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do now. Like, I mean, like this month I'm doing 30 days of carnivore diet for fun.
Nice. Yeah.
And I'm cutting out coffee for the month too. And who cares? I'm taking cold showers every morning. Thanks to Ryan Muncie. I don't know. Do you know Ryan Muncie?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you should check him out on Instagram as well. He's a great guy. He wrote a book, F Your Feelings.
Okay.
It's a great book. I think you'd like it a lot.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
And yeah, so thanks to him, I'm doing cold showers now, and they are awful. But the whole idea is change your physiology, switch things up, try new things, be refreshed, and all that. Our bodies are so incredible. We have this incredible structure of this vessel that we live in. We need to stimulate it in different ways. We need to unlock secrets, because there are secrets locked in here. Mm-hmm. And we need to get those out. And, there's proven ways, through meditation and prayer and all these kind of things. We have these things, kind of half figured out that we know benefit us, but no one wants to implement them, because one, they're, they seem unorthodox. They seem a little, woo woo, spiritually or whatever, maybe. And they're a little bit of a challenge, and we don't, we like to be comfortable.
Right.
So the whole idea is take yourself out of that comfort zone.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, that's the thing, is people are up against how they're prioritizing or valuing certainty and significance over uncertainty, variety, like you said, and actually maybe some growth.
Yeah.
Right. So things that that's the thing, we can almost intellectually know that this would be good for me.
Yes.
And yet it's so scary about letting go of some of those bad habits that we keep thinking, oh, tomorrow I'm going to do it. Right.
The same way we know things are bad for us. We know that, eating 3 chocolate bars while watching a movie at night is bad for you. But we're like, I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'll eat some strawberries and do a
Yeah.
workout. It's weird.
And why we do it again is because we're fulfilling those human needs. And once I started figuring out it's like, to me, I use it as like the analogy of being able to finally see like all the ones and zeros, like in the Matrix,
Yep.
when Neo finally can see it for what it is, and it no longer impresses him, you know. I've just done so much of this work that I can be like at my refrigerator and looking and being like, I'm actually not hungry right now. I'm bored.
Yeah, what am I doing here?
Yeah, what am I doing here? I'm like, I'm bored. Okay. Because I could eat something that's probably not all that great for me. And about 5 or 10 minutes later, I'm still going to be bored again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm looking for a quick little shot in the arm of like some excitement.
Yep.
Like a chocolate bar or something like that, right? And that's why so many people will literally be on a journey of losing weight to change their habits, but then they shame themselves because they just ate a huge piece of cake. And they don't realize that they have set up a game where they live to eat versus eating to live, right? They
Yes.
live for an adventure, and that adventure is through the art of eating, which was my parents, right? And so people do that with being a workaholic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or like I said, Netflix or gambling or drugs or sex or porn or whatever. When you actually start to see why you're doing it, I think it allowed me to have so much more grace and empathy for myself to be like, dude, it's not that you're broken or that you have no, I mean, certain people think they have no discipline,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that they're lazy. SBS. It's just that they don't actually know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, they haven't
might
figured
think
out
they
what's
do.
going on in their minds yet.
Yeah, they'll resort to, oh, it's because I just have this like huge addiction to sugar.
That's
you
just
know,
me.
or it's my genetics, or it's just me, or certainly, you know, certain lifestyles can be genetic, but a lot of it will come from our examples of our parents or however
Yes.
we were raised, you know. So that's the challenge, is that I think a lot of people that I talk to who have a subpar relationship to an aspect of their life will always argue with me when I talk about having my bar higher. They will argue with me to lower my standards because you're being unrealistic, you know.
No.
You know, that's just not realistic, or you would have to be obsessive or vanity driven to be, you know, super healthy at 40 years old, right? Or to have an amazing, passionate, loving relationship after 20 years. Like, yeah, that sounds good, Johnny, but you'll understand when you're married and you have kids, you know?
You don't get
And
it.
not to say it won't be freaking challenging,
Yeah.
but we all get what we're willing to tolerate. And if you're not willing to challenge the status quo and to raise your standards, then don't be surprised that you get what you get. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that was my life, and that's what I got. So shame on me then. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I learned the hard way. So am I going to keep going back to doing the same thing, or am I actually going to raise my standards? And that's why I've kept my standards high, and why I'm still searching for someone to meet me in my business, in my relationships, in my health, like at that level of being like, I'm not willing to settle for good enough, which is actually where, to go around full circle, where a lot of men are. They've been settling again for certainty and significance, you know, of at least I'm the breadwinner, or I'm bringing, you know, they may not even be the breadwinner. They may have dual incomes, but like,
Yep.
at least I'm pulling my weight, you know, or I've got this prestigious job, you know, but I hate it, but at least I got food on the table, and, you know, my 401k is growing each year. Like,
Yeah. I'm
for
killing it
what,
in
man?
fantasy football.
Yeah. You find other means to have that adventure,
Yeah.
rather than, and that's one of the best probably advice that one of my coaches gave me years ago when I moved out here to Colorado, and yet I was still doing the same exact workaholic patterns that my dad did. And then I was complaining about how I'm not meeting any women. And he's like, you're a
Hello.
workaholic.
You
Yeah.
work 80 hours a week, dummy.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's like, what's attractive about being a workaholic to a woman? What do you think is attractive about that? And I was like, nothing. He's like, dude, stop effing looking for someone to fall in love with, and instead create a life that you can fall in love with, which includes space for her, and you'll find someone that will be more than willing to grab hands with you and you know, fall in love with the adventure of life.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and her adventure, she's on an adventure too, you know, and you guys do it together. And I think that's like, okay, I'm not willing to settle for anything less than that. and to continue to raise the game. And I think that's what it's all about. For me, it's about, I want to be able to get to the end of my life and be able to look back and be like, I became the king of my own experience, the king of my kingdoms,
Yep.
And I've got my queen, and she's the queen of her kingdoms and everything else. It's like, we did this together. And if not, then it's going to be a lifetime pursuit of mine. There's just no other way, and I think that's the challenge that I put forth towards all men and women, but primarily men at this point, which is like, you got to raise your game, otherwise we're going to settle for losing the game,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
that's not the point.
I love it. I think that's a good spot to wrap it up, because we have about 3 minutes left here before I got to let you go. And I think that's awesome. I think as men, we need to raise our game for sure. So that's a great way to end it right there. A couple of things I want to ask you before I let you go.
Sure.
The first thing is, and you can answer this any way you want, how can we be more effective men? And you can answer this any way you want.
I think it's probably a 3-part answer. I'm writing a book right now, and I feel like that's kind of like the thing that keeps coming. Like, how can we be more effective, and how can we level up? I think first and foremost, you have to heal. You have to heal whatever the wounds are, right? Secondarily, you have to then figure out, okay, now that I've gotten myself out of the way, where am I going? And why do I want to go there? What's of worth, like I said,
Yep.
And then thirdly, you have to kind of get clear about what ultimately is fulfilling to you.
Awesome.
So heal yourself, get clear on what you're going for. Just make sure that when you get there, or chances are you'll probably never actually get there, but that you enjoy the ride while you're going. Right.
Good. I like it. When are you releasing your book? Do you have any idea?
Hopefully within the next couple of months.
Cool.
It always takes longer than you think, but
for sure.
Yeah, it's the title is Becoming Kings, and it's about supporting men and becoming the champion of their dreams and creating a life that they actually be like proud of at the end of their days. So,
cool, man. Well, I'll keep an eye on your social media, and if you get a chance upon like near the release, let me know, and I'll push it on the social media as well.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank
for
you.
sure.
Appreciate it.
And within my inner circles for sure.
Cool.
Last thing, where can guys find you? Where can they connect with you if they want to connect? And where can they find out more?
Honestly, if they just go to johnnyking.com, I got links to all my socials, and
perfect.
Connect with me there. If they're passing through Denver, they can hit me up and we can grab coffee or whatnot, or go for a mountain bike ride or whatever. So,
oh, you mountain bike?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh man, I'm coming to Denver.
You're welcome to, man. You're welcome to.
It's a long trip from here, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but it's beautiful out here. So anytime you're passing through, you've always got a place to stay.
Cool, man. I'll take you up on it.
Yeah.
All right, man. I think I should let you go, because we're just about to hit an hour in about 30 seconds. You got another coaching call coming on, which I love that. I love that you're spending your time, building up men in our communities and all that kind of stuff. And, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and have a good chat, because I think this is a message that a lot of men need to hear. And, you're a great voice for it. So I appreciate it, man.
Oh, dude, thank you for giving me the opportunity. And like I said, we're all in this together, and if I can, if this has been any value to even one guy, then I've lived a good life today. So I appreciate it.
I agree, man. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, man. Have a good night, and I hope the coaching call goes well, and I hope you enjoy yourself.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thanks. Later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website at www.menofbronze.ca. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and share the show with your friends and family. This was the Men of Bronze podcast. Be worth remembering.